Hello there. My name is Andrea McCormick and I'm the Director of Fast Accounting Services, which is an accountancy practice based in Bedfordshire. I have a range of clients from self-employed individuals right through to limited companies and partnerships offering a range of services such as accounting and tax. But today I wanted to say a little bit more about the government coronavirus job retention scheme. That's got a little bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Right, so a couple of weeks ago, none of us had ever heard the term furlough or furloughing. Probably what we thought is, if we had to guess, it was probably something to do with farming. But, as 2 weeks have gone on, we've actually learnt that to be furloughed actually means something quite different. It means that your employer no longer has a job for you to do. So, for example, if you work in a pub, the pub has had to shut. There is no work for you to do. So your employer has two choices. They can either make you redundant or they can offer you a furlough. Now, a furlough means that you are going to stay at home and be in a sort of a ready state, ready to come back to work as and when your employer has work for you to do again. A minimum period of furlough is 3 weeks, but at the moment, a lot of businesses are thinking they're probably going to be shut for up to 12 weeks, and this is the period that we are looking at. So it is an alternative to making staff redundant, and obviously it gives all of those workforce an ongoing income, which otherwise they would not have, and they would have to resort to the benefit system. So what you can be offered by your employer is either 80% of your wages, or if they're feeling really generous and they have some cash in the business, they may even offer you 100% of your normal wages. Now let's be clear, normal wages means your salary for the month, usually for February 2020, that will be your baseline. But it doesn't include things like commissions or bonuses and things like that. It is your baseline salary. And that is the figure on which you will either receive, if you're very lucky, 100% or 80% of your salary. Your employer will get a reimbursement for 80% of your normal salary, plus employer's national insurance and any employer pension contributions under automatic enrolment. So your employer isn't out of pocket unless they're offering you the 100%. So employers can claim this rebate from the revenue as long as they had a PAYE scheme active on the 28th of February 2020 and they have a UK bank account to which the revenue can actually refund this money. In terms of which employees can actually benefit from this scheme, it's full or part-time employees. It could be employees on a flexible or 0-hour contracts. So it is actually quite generous in that respect. Also, if in the run-up to this whole having to stay at home, you were actually made redundant by your employer, they do actually have an option to re-engage you and they would be able to furlough you. So if you have been made redundant, it is definitely worth speaking to your employer and asking them if they would consider taking you back on and offering you a furlough. Okay. Directors can also be furloughed. Okay, this is quite new and hot off the press. Directors of their own limited companies can be furloughed. But there is a proviso, and that is that they are not working in the business to generate money for the business. So as long as they are just doing things like admin, dealing with emails and just keeping things ticking over, then that is absolutely fine and they can be furloughed. If they are still doing fee earning work, selling things, whatever it might be, then they can't be furloughed. Okay. Also, if you started a new job with an employer after the 28th of February 2020, you cannot be furloughed. An employer doesn't have to put all of their employees on furlough. It might be actually they need a skeleton staff to keep things ticking over. In that case, they either decide which staff members can be furloughed and which need to stay on, or they can actually decide to swap it around. So they could furlough one batch of staff for say 3 weeks or 4 weeks and then swap it around and furlough a different batch of employees for the next 4 weeks. And then that spreads the workload around between all the employees. Right, let me just go through. I don't want to miss anything, so I've just made some very brief notes. One question I have been asked quite frequently is if somebody has two jobs. So they're both working for two employers under PAYE, what is their situation? The situation is that the employers are dealt with separately. You can be offered furlough by both employers. Okay, so employer one has got no work for you to do. They've asked you to stay at home and they can furlough you. The second employer again can furlough you if they have no work for you to do, or perhaps maybe you can work for them and they will continue to pay you your normal salary for working. Whilst you are off, an employee cannot work for the employer. Okay. What they can do is do some volunteer work, for example, or they could also undertake some training. So if, for example, your job involves doing online courses and that sort of thing, then you can be doing that during your furlough period. Okay. Your employer does need to make sure that for the hours that you are spending doing that training, you are earning the national minimum wage. Okay, so that's the only little odd point perhaps to bear in mind. Things like maternity leave, paternity pay, all that sort of thing, the normal rules apply. So if you're already on maternity leave, you would get your normal statutory maternity pay and your employer would be able to recover that as they always have done. Okay. There are specific rules if employees have variable pay. So say you get paid more in the summer than you do in the winter. There is guidance as to what you do in this situation, and effectively it's an average. Okay. Right, in order to make the claim, normally whoever runs your payroll would normally undertake this for you. But once the Revenue actually launched this system, which they haven't yet, we're expecting it to be launched towards the end of April. So either you as the employer or your payroll provider will need to log in and provide the following information. So things like your PAYE reference number, how many employees you've actually furloughed, what period it covers. You are allowed to claim more often than monthly, but it has to be every 3 weeks as a minimum. So if you pay staff weekly, you can only reclaim once every 3 weeks. You'll need to tell them how much you're claiming and your bank account and sort code for the payment to go in, and they will want your contact details, so a name and a phone number for who to speak to if they have a query. Okay, obviously you need to document all of this and keep it on file because the Revenue will have the option of coming to have a look at your documentation after the event to make sure that it's all above board. Okay. Let's see, right, the only other thing I can think of really is that claims can be backdated back to the 1st of March. So if you've had to furlough staff through the middle of March, then you will actually be able to reclaim their wages from the 1st of March. So that is definitely going to be helpful. Okay, when the government decide that businesses can reopen and staff who are currently on furlough need to come back into the workforce, it might be that you find that your business has changed substantially and perhaps you're not as busy as you were. So you might not need to take all of those staff back on. So at that point you have to make a decision. You either take them back on or at that point you have to then enter into the whole redundancy situation. Okay. The final point I wanted to make is that this isn't a freebie from the Revenue. Okay, this is an reimbursement of costs that the employer has incurred, and that means that it will be taxable income in your company's accounts. Okay, effectively you'll be claiming the wage costs on one side and then cancelling them out with the money that you've had back, because effectively that isn't your cost. That cost has been reimbursed to you by the government. Okay. If there's anything else that you want me to clarify or any other videos covering any topics that you would like me to do, please comment below and I will endeavour to get them loaded up as soon as I can. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.